arrest of a former Bridgeport priest has come as a big shock to those who knew him.
The former Monsignor is accused of being part of a drug ring that was selling meth. News 8's Stephanie Simone has more on what the Bridgeport diocese had to say about the arrest.
As a priest, folks came to 61-year-old Kevin Wallen in despair.
But you never think it's the person you know.
We spoke to him 2 years ago when 2 Bridgeport firefighters died. But now police say addicts also sought his help, looking for drugs.
The parish obviously is reacting with sadness and hurt and some difficulty.
A federal grand jury indicted the former Roman Catholic priest and 4 others, saying they shipped methamphetamines from California to Connecticut from September to January. Then they're accused of selling them to undercover agents. Police say evidence includes wiretaps and surveillance.
People are entering into deep and fervent prayer for him and for us, and that's always a good thing.
The Diocese of Bridgeport says Wallen resigned from St. Augustine's in June of 2011 for health and personal issues, and they hope to move the parish forward from this.
We're here to bring healing and to help people to grow in the relationship with God, and likewise, therefore, in the relationship with the community at large.
If found guilty, he could face a minimum of 10 years in prison. In Bridgeport, Stephanie Simone, News 8.
From January 18th, 2013.
He was so kind to the kids, and he was always, like telling them good stories, and he was really funny.
Monsignor Kevin Wallen, seen here on the left next to former Bridgeport Bishop William Laurie, was arrested by federal agents at his Waterbury home earlier this month.
The whole street was filled with cops, and they took some guy out in handcuffs.
The U.S. Attorney's Office says Wallen and several others were running a drug operation where crystal meth was bought from California and shipped into Connecticut so it could be sold. Wallen served at St. Augustine's in Bridgeport for nearly a decade. Back in 2011, he took a leave of absence, citing health issues. The charges involve 6 drug transactions between September of 2012 and this month.
They were taking back the stuff from the house.
The Bridgeport Diocese tells us Monsignor Kevin Wallen's arrest comes with a sense of shock and concern. It goes on to say the diocese stands ready to help as it has throughout the past 2 years. We ask for prayers for Monsignor Wallen during the difficult days ahead of him.
I don't want to judge anybody, but it's tough.
Monsignor Kevin Wallen has an interesting personal life, and unfortunately caught up with him. Now, this is the Roman Catholic Diocese of Bridgeport, Connecticut's leader. Looks like a perfectly normal guy there. And he got up to some pretty interesting shenanigans. So he was arrested, unfortunately, because of trying to sell meth to police officers multiple times. Now, I should let you know also that he owns a sex shop, the name of which is Land of Oz and Dorothy's Place. And even after they found out, the diocese found out that he owned this sex shop, they still stood behind him.
What?
But once it came out that he was selling meth to police officers and using the sex shop to launder the money, eventually, at that point, you lose your position.
His nickname is Monsignor Meth.
That's pretty awesome. There's going to be a TV show about this guy. I think Breaking Bad should have a character like this at some point. That would work pretty well.
So this guy's Catholic?
Yeah. So he liked to...
He owned a sex shop, and they're still cool with that, the Catholic.
No, he's not just Catholic, he's a priest.
Boy, once you're a made...
No, he's not just a Catholic guy.
He's a Monsignor.
Yes.
Once you're made man in that Catholic church,
it's so true.
really...
It's like having tenure.
You can do whatever you want, I guess. Yeah.
But he had a history of personal problems. This is dating back to 2011. In July 2011, he had a sabbatical to deal with his personal problems. People were saying that he was caught engaging in sex acts with odd-looking men while sometimes dressed as a woman. I don't have a problem with that if that's your personal life.
Yeah, no.
Once you get into the meth and the laundering money, that's actually a problem.
Is the problem that the guys were odd-looking? Is that the problem, that they were odd-looking?
They apparently thought it was worth noting.
The problem is that he took an oath of celibacy because he's a priest.
And so the reason that I included this on the rundown is we like to occasionally point out the hypocrisy of religious figures, but this guy just... he ticked off every category. Like it sounds like the headline is a Mad Libs that some crazy liberal was filling out.
Yeah.
Yes.
My favorite is a quote from this parishioner.
Yeah, let's hear that.
There's an evil invading our world, and it has come to our church. This was a work of evil, and I'm praying for the Monsignor.
So that's how they do it, right?
Exactly.
So I remember when I grew up Catholic, and then the priest in our Father Holohan, we used to call him, the kids call him Happy Hands Holohan, because he was always trying to grab your cock. And,
oh my God!
And he made the kids happy. I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was really happy. And so when it came out that he finally got caught, they sent a letter out to the parishioners saying that please pray for him.
Yeah, exactly.
He needs their prayers more than any. The priest, and then my mom reiterated. She says the priests need our prayers more than anybody. They're constantly, the devil's coming after them. Oh my God! It's just like, so there's nothing they can ever do that's bad.
From January 21st, 2013.
More scandal this evening surrounding a former Bridgeport priest arrested for being a part of a meth ring.
It's a story we told you about last week. News 8's Neka Nwosu live at News 8 Control tonight with the latest developments. Neka?
Well, Darren, and people were shocked by the initial report, and now an official close to the investigation tells News 8 that that priest also owned a sex shop, and he used that shop to launder money that he made in his drug dealings.
News 8 first brought you the story last week. Monsignor Kevin Wallen of St. Augustine's Cathedral Parish in Bridgeport arrested for his part in a meth drug ring. This is Monsignor Wallen 2 years ago. We interviewed him after 2 Bridgeport firefighters died. At that time, he was a pastor providing comfort to the community. Now the 61-year-old is accused of comforting drug addicts. Federal authorities charged Wallen with distributing methamphetamine, and they say some of those drug sales happened here at Wallen's apartment in Waterbury. Authorities say Wallen would then launder the money through this adult sex shop that he bought in North Haven. The parish Wallen served addressed some of the allegations against him in a press conference last week.
The parish obviously is reacting with sadness and hurt.
Wallen hasn't worked for St. Augustine since 2011 when he went on sabbatical, but at the same time, officials here had concerns about his mental health. The diocese says parishioners expressed concern about Monsignor Wallen's strange behavior. Sources tell the Connecticut Post, while still a pastor, Wallen was seen dressed as a woman and was visited by other men dressed as women. They allegedly engaged in sexual acts with the Monsignor in the cathedral's rectory.
After the initial shock of what had happened is being realized, people are entering into deep and fervent prayer for him and for us.
Wallen is one of 5 people charged in this case. They all face a minimum 10 years in prison. Live in News 8 Control, Neka Nwosu, News 8.
From May 7th, 2015.
The Connecticut priest who has been dubbed Monsignor Meth expected to be sentenced today, and he is asking a judge for leniency. Kevin Wallen, a former pastor at St. Augustine Parish in Bridgeport, entered a guilty plea back in 2013 to charges of possessing meth with intent to sell. Now, prosecutors want to lock him up for at least 10 years, but Wallen is asking for 4 years in prison and 500 hours of community service. Prosecutors say the 63-year-old priest wanted to launder the drug money through an adult store that he owned.
A sentencing day for a Bridgeport priest arrested for operating a major drug ring. Thanks for joining us on Eyewitness News at noon. I'm Kara Sundlin. 63-year-old Kevin Wallen is in federal court. He was caught selling nearly 2 kilos of methamphetamine and buying a sex shop to possibly launder the money. He now faces a minimum of 10 years in prison and millions of dollars in fines. Channel 3's Susan Raff is live with our mobile newsroom outside of federal court. Susan?
Kara, this case has certainly captured a lot of attention, which may be one of the reasons why the judge is being so strict in this case. He has now closed off the courtroom. No one can go in during the sentencing. And as far as phones and any other electronic devices, those are simply not allowed. Wallen has already been in prison for 2 years, and we're told inside the courtroom today are a lot of priests and other members of the clergy who have showed up here to show their solidarity for this priest. Now, the priest was arrested 2 years ago. He is convicted, or he was not convicted, actually. He decided to plead guilty. He is hoping for a lighter sentence in all of this. He was arrested with 4 other people in what the feds say was a major drug ring. In fact, they say that the priest was getting these shipments of methamphetamines at his apartment in Waterbury, and that the methamphetamines were coming from California. Apparently, according to the feds, this priest tried to sell those drugs to an undercover another officer. Now, again, inside the court are a lot of people. The courtroom has now been signed off or has been sealed off. They're not allowing people inside. A lot of priests we saw going into the courtroom. People have known this priest for a long time. Wallen was the priest at a diocese in Bridgeport. He is in prison at this moment in the court, but we're told he probably will not be coming up today. And this sentencing could actually take a very long time because, again, there are a lot of people who are here today. And we will have much more on these latest developments coming up on Eyewitness News starting at 5. For now, we're live with the mobile newsroom in Hartford. Susan Raff, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Covering New England now, a suspended Roman Catholic priest in Connecticut is sentenced for running a meth distribution ring. A judge today ordered Monsignor Kevin Wallen to more than 5 years in prison. The 63-year-old priest was arrested 2 years ago. Prosecutors say he received methamphetamine in the mail from California suppliers and supplied a New York distributor. They say he also bought a sex shop to possibly launder his drug money.
He served God, but now a local priest will be serving time. He's been sentenced to more than 5 years in prison. Kevin Wallen, who has been called Monsignor Meth, was caught operating a major drug ring, and today in federal court he said he was sorry. Channel 3 Eyewitness News reporter Susan Raff tells us why so many have chosen to forgive him. Susan?
Denise, there were quite a few people in court today supporting Father Wallen. Many say he was a good priest who became heavily dependent on an addictive drug. And while the judge listened carefully to what Wallen had to say, he said that Wallen and that he could not ignore Wallen's decision to infect his community. He was a well-liked priest who became addicted to drugs and then became a drug dealer. Kevin Wallen was a priest at St. Augustine's in Bridgeport, but was forced to resign after the feds say they discovered Wallen was receiving up to 2 pounds of methamphetamines a month from a supplier in California.
Monsignor Wallen didn't really add anything new except to say that he really felt ready to begin treatment.
Father McKenna came to federal court along with many others to support Monsignor Wallen, who has been locked up since his arrest 2 years ago.
People love their priests, despite what the media says about priests and the fact that priests are human and have failings.
From September 11th, 2015.
All right, we now know the name of the man who was struck and killed by a train in Westport earlier this week. Officials say the Reverend Colin McKenna was on the tracks near the train station when he was hit on Wednesday. Authorities still do not know exactly why he was on the tracks. McKenna was a writer and editor in the communications office of the Diocese of Bridgeport. He also helped in area parishes celebrating Mass on weekends.